Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Hey, my name is Gina and I am doing great. So, are we ready for a new series? I am. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. I decided that I wanted to do a planner. I did one for November, December of this year, and I wanted to go ahead and do one for next year. So what I've done is I've created the cover and I've also created the monthly sectional pieces. But I'm going to go into more detail with all of this in another video. It will be a video by itself on how I created the planner, what website I used, and all of that good jazz. But with these several videos that are coming up, this one included, what they are they are how I did the covers and how I did the monthly sectional pieces. I used watercolor to do these, and there is a theme, and the cover gives the theme away. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the themes. I will do that in the planner video. Okay, so these videos are pretty much just me explaining what colors I used and the techniques that I used in order to create these covers. I hope all of this is making sense. So just stay tuned, just watch the series and it will all make sense in the end, I promise. Okay, so let's start with the cover. This is the cover. I didn't want to do a background on it, colored background. I just wanted to leave the page white. So that is what I did. The paper that I'm using for all of these is the B paper. The individual sheets, I got them from Michaels. I really like this paper. It's a way better quality than the Canson XL that I normally used. So this paper takes water beautifully. It's 100% cotton. It's also part of the journal that I have that I try to do every day. That's where I've found this paper from, and I really do enjoy it. And so I just found the loose leaves at Michael's, so I ended up getting that because I wanted my journal to stay the 30 pages because I like working in it every day, even though I haven't been able to do that because I've been busy with my 12 Days of Craftmas and then this series, but I'm going to get back to it pretty soon. So as you can see, what I've done is I used my Pretty Excellent watercolor pan. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But I just used Payne's Gray with a little bit of yellow ochre to get the leaves that are going around the sides, that grayish color. I just love that color. I use it a lot in this series. And then I use, I think it's Rose Madder. I don't know if that's exactly the color of it. But for the flowers and for these sprigs that I'm putting up here. And then olive green for the stems and the leaves for the flowers. Now the background, like I said, I wanted to keep it white. And so I just used my Micron pen in 0.05 or 0.05 to do little hearts, little musical notes there and everything to give it a fun little background. And I also used a heart stamp and used Lulu Lavender to kind of give it a little bit of hearts in the background as well. And then for my musical stamp, I used my Archival black ink for it. I really am enjoying watercolor more. I'm so glad that I didn't give up on it because I almost did. And I'm just glad that I've stuck with it because it's becoming one of my favorite mediums, really. So here I'm using my white gel pen just to add some little details in make it a little whimsical. You know, I like whimsical. I like things, you know, that's just my style. And I really like this cover. I think it embodes me well. I like the little doodling and stuff like that. So I'm really happy with the cover. And again, it gave a hint. Okay, so now here is January, and I wanted to use purple because, you know, when I thought of January, I thought cold winter, and so I wanted it to be a wintry scene. And when I think of wintry scenes, I always think of purple because to me it just seems so like cold, you know. So I'm just using layering techniques with the watercolors, blotting and blopping and everything like that. Now I personally like, especially for what I'm doing with this, for my backgrounds, I don't mind streaks. I actually like it because it gives it more dimension and texture. But that's just my preference. I know a lot of people want seamlessly blending and stuff like that. And if it was something different, you know, I probably would too. But for what I'm doing, this was fine, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm used my little oval brush to kind of feather some of it out and all that. You know, I'm just playing around really too. I'm just trying some new techniques and just trying to think of, you know, different ways to get different looks, you know. So why not? That's what paint's for and art's for. It's to play and have fun. But to my Pretty Excellent palette, I did not know until today actually that Paul Rubens, I actually have his little tin, which do you see it in this video? I don't know if you see it in this video or not, but I have his metallics, and I did not know it was the same company. The Pretty Excellent is the same company, and I love these watercolors. I love them. So now I'm using one of my favorite stamps. Y'all know I love this stamp. I use it like all the time, and I have the archival ink, and I think this is the Concord Grape by the Distress Ink one. I think that's what that is, to use. And now I'm going in with Payne's Gray and just creating some trees here to give the a little like landscape look. I love using this technique to create trees. I just learned how to do this year. Actually, I've learned a lot with watercolor because I've been taking a few courses and courses in drawing. I've not completed all of them yet. But because, you know, I get busy doing my own thing and experimenting and learning my own way of doing things, you know, because that's just how I am. But I will link in the description the course I took because I really like this guy. He's kind of like an older gentleman, and he's really groovy. I really dig him. And he makes it kind of simple, and I really like him. So I mean, this is a pretty simple way to make trees, but it looks like you spent like forever to make them, but you don't, you know, it's this simple to do, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a Bob Ross type thing, I guess. And but you don't need much detail, especially in watercolor. That is one thing I have found out is that you don't need a lot of detail in watercolor because your eye is gonna kind of see what it's supposed to be anyway, unless you want it to be detailed, of course, you know. To me, it still is one of the most difficult mediums to get a hang of, really. But I'm glad I never gave up on it. And after taking a couple of courses, I took one with the Frugal Crafter with Lindsay, and then the one I mentioned earlier. And with those, and then watching other watercolor tutorials on YouTube, I'm feeling more and more confident with it. I understand it a lot better now than I did 3 years ago. And it is becoming, like I said, one of my favorite mediums to use. I really like it. It fits my style, I feel, a lot because I like the looseness of it. Here I'm using some gouache and to make the snow, and I watered it down a little bit to make the snow fall. But I really do like this this background. I like it a lot. And again, this is for January. Now, before on the cover, I used a calligraphy pen that I got from Tonics kit. But that's the only time I use it. All the other time I use my Pitt pens. And of course they're a brush Pitt pen, but they're not quite like a calligraphy one. But I think they turned out okay because I like, using the different colors. And I'm no letterer. I'm just starting out working on that as well. I just have to constantly remind myself, when you go down, you go fat. When you go up, you go skinny. So you got to kind of go slow, and so here I'm using, now I make sure though that pen is completely dry before I use my kneaded eraser, or it will smear. So I make sure, and I use a kneaded eraser because it won't tear up the paper, and it erases just fine because I used a 3B pencil and I just lightly used it anyway. So now I'm using this DeWint acrylic white pen that I got from a Scroller Box. And y'all, at first, when I first got it, I really, really enjoyed it. Now, not so much. It leaks from the nib so bad, it's almost unusable. You see how many times I'm wiping. And I don't know what it is with this fine one and my other fine for Posca, even the white pen, they leak from the nib. So I just don't understand. So now we're moving on to February. And, did y'all see what it said? Baby, it's cold outside. Okay, so there you go. Again, it's all going to tie in, and I hope by the end y'all will understand where all my inspiration comes from. And again, when I do my planner video, I'll explain where everything came from. So now I'm using my Prima Pastel Dreams paints here, and I wanted pastels because I wanted this to be a light pink, and as you can see, it didn't quite turn out that way. But I mean, it's okay. This is not my favorite cover I did or month I did by a long shot. This was a bad as dark as what it turned out to be. And now I'm using this Distressed Harley Quinn stamp with some baby pink memento, and then I just have these little heart stamps from, just some random stamps, and I'm using a Worn Lipstick and Lulu Lavender on those. And then I'll use my Distressed ink and the Worn Lipstick to make my little hearts there. Because, when you think of February, you think of Valentine's Day, or at least I do. Pinks, purples, reds type of deal. So that's what I was feeling. I was feeling Valentine, love hearts. Flutter, flutter, flutter. So there I'm spraying this with water because I really wanted it to lighten up. It didn't work. Didn't work. So I'm just using this die just to create a circle so that I have a guideline for where I want to put the lettering and where I'm going to put my flowers and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, this was one of those days where I had an idea of what I wanted, right? And what I did with this series, and I really learned my lesson with February and March, because March, again, is not going to be one of my favorites either. I have a Canson XL spiral notebook as well. I bought those on Michael's when they were like dirt cheap. It was like buy one get one free or something like that. So I bought a couple of them, and so what I did was I used those to create the backgrounds just for February and March, right? And because I'm in my head, I'm like, well, I know what I want it to look like. I just want to see the background. I want to make sure that the background is going to work. And normally I don't really do that. Normally when I do art journal pages or when I do stuff like this, I just wing it from the beginning. I don't even do a preliminary anything. But in this case, I wanted to do the preliminary. I wanted to make sure that all the colors were going to work and the techniques I wanted to try were going to work, especially since I'm working mainly with watercolors, right? So I learned a lesson, and that lesson was always do a whole page. Don't just wing it. Don't just think, well, I have an idea. Because what happens is what's happening right now. The flowers are, not really what was in my head. They're kind of misplaced. I mean, they're not in a, kind of order that I really wanted them. I'm just slapping them on the page, and, it just is like, okay, well now, let's quit doing those little X's because I don't like those. So now let's do more of the round ones, which I do enjoy those better. And so I will just keep finagling with this page. And then I put these dots, and then I'm like, okay, well, I like those, but I'm going to make them into like a little sprig. And then I don't know what I'm thinking. I think I was so hung up on staying on the curve of the, circle, that I just was not thinking that, Gina, you could go down in there. You don't have to be like right there. So, but you will see, it does get better. But again, it's not one of my favorites. But I think in the end, I end up saving it because I will end up using white gel pen. And y'all, if anything helps a page, it is white splatters and white gel pen. I'm convinced of that. So, and as you see, the wording for this is it started with a kiss. And I actually left out a word. It should be it started out with a kiss. So, but I wrote it wrong, when I was writing it out. So that's my bad, but that should also be another hint. I hope I have y'all intrigued on what this is. I hope you're enjoying the mystery of what does all of this have in common. So yeah, back to the, no, because I'm using the Prima. Now I do like these watercolors. They're really vibrant, even though they're pastels. I do like them a lot, actually. And I just got them off of Amazon. I didn't think they were too awfully expensive. I can't remember now how much they were, but I don't think they were too bad. So now, as you see, I'm just trying to add stuff because it's just like not getting it. And then it's just looking more awkward and more awkward to me. And I'm like, well, I just have to keep adding these things because maybe that will help it out a little bit more if I just, start adding things all around the place, But I think it's the awkwardness of the placement of the bigger flowers, I think, is what threw this off. But I don't give up. That's the whole thing. Just don't give up. And just because I had this really bad day, okay, it's going to be 2 days, but this one is one of the worst. In my art journey, it didn't dissuade me from continuing on with my journey in art making. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't get discouraged. I didn't say, well, I'm never picking up another watercolor paintbrush or another paintbrush ever again. No, because I just continued. I learned from it. I knew where my mistakes were and how to hopefully, make less of them. And then I also reminded myself, there are professional people out there, professional ball players, sports players, who have a bad day, right? Think about the Super Bowl that Peyton Manning went to. He's one of the best quarterbacks in history, and yet his team got snockered, right? They got so beat. And did he, like, oh, I'm never doing this again? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. He had a bad day. Even though it was an important day, it happens. Everybody has a bad day, right? So keep that in mind too when you are creating art and you don't like it and you don't think it looks good. Just learn from it. Enjoy the experience. If it's not bringing you joy, then just you ought not do it anyway. But I did have fun doing this. I didn't get frustrated. I just kept going, okay, what can I do to fix it? What can I do to fix it? Well, let's add little berries. Yes, that looks cute. And I think that did help it a lot, putting those little red little berry sprigs everywhere, like out of the thing. I like that. I think that ended up coming cute. And now that I'm really looking at it, the problem may have been as well, I used the wrong size brush. Remember, guys, I'm new at watercoloring. I'm new to this. So I think my brush was too small. I should have probably used a bigger size brush than what I used. And I think those leaves would have looked better, And then here's the white gel pen, the savior of the day. And I do think that it does make it look a lot better, just to add details to it. So don't dismiss this white gel pen, because I didn't want to put splatters on it, but and it turned out okay, but like I said, it's not one of my favorites. It's not, so. But just don't give up. Do not give up. That's just all I ask, And who am I to ask? I don't know. I'm rambling now, as you can tell. So I'll be quiet for a minute and just let y'all watch and enjoy the La Musica. Okay, now we'll go on to March. And again, this was not one of my best or favorites, because it didn't. I think why is because what was in my head didn't translate onto the page. So, and that happens. So, but I ended up putting a line there because I didn't want some of this to have paint, or like I'm going to do a green background, and I wanted to make sure that part of it didn't have any color on it. So I'm using olive green for the background, and then I'll use sap green to kind of put a border around it, to make it stand out. And again, I don't mind the streaks. I don't mind that at all, because it just adds texture. And then I'm just patting this on there to also give it some texture. And now I'm using a Plum Purdy stamp. I mean, not stamp, but stencil. I love the stencil so much. I love the checkerboard. It's what I used on my Miss Snowflake and Holly decorative painting. I love it. And I'm using Pilled Paint, the archival ink of that. And then I'll use my favorite stamp, because when you think of March, you think of St. Patrick's Day and windy. And then I also think, when I think of St. Patrick's Day, of course I think of green. And then I think of Ireland. So that's another hint. And so now I'm going to create my tree, because this is supposed, and then, of course, spring happens, and all these, especially here, there's just beautiful flowering trees, and just, I just love it, even though the pollen kills you, but it's beautiful. So the tree is what is not my favorite, okay? I love the background. The tree, not so much. However, I will do a tree later on in the series, and I learned from this tree what I didn't do, what I needed to do. So I like that tree better. It turned out better. Because this one just seems like it's just like, it's half and then just a little bit of twigs hanging out. I don't even know what I was trying to accomplish here, but anyway, again, I didn't do my preliminary. All I did was the background to know that it would work and what colors would go together, and I didn't continue with the tree aspect because in my head I'm like, well, I'll just wing it. Well, I learned, so. But I'm taking water and going around the branches so that when I put the pink on there, I'm just dabbing it on, but because water is there, it's kind of like expanding, to make the blossoms. This could be any tree you want it to be. See, that's the glory of watercolor. In my head, though, it's more like a dogwood tree, even though it's a little pinker than a pink dogwood tree would be. However, that's just what's in my head on this. It was my daddy's favorite tree, and so I always liked the dogwood trees. So again, I'm just trying to play with this the best that I can to make it turn out okay, but it is what it is. And like I said, I really like the background. So then I write the I don't know what I would call this, but it's gonna say I'm just a fool for you on there. And let's see, then I will get my trusty gel pen again to do a lot of doodling and try to zhuzh it up, and I think it works. It like I said, white gel pen is just mwah. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the other months. I'm doing 3 months each video, and then next Wednesday will be the reveal of the planner, and then the little mystery will be revealed. And hopefully, leave in the description or in the comments if you think you know what all the theme is so far. Might be hard to tell with just these 3, but by December, hopefully you'll know what the theme is. All right, y'all. Well, thanks so much for watching. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it if you would. I would appreciate it so much. All right, y'all. Y'all be good to one another, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.